This is what we're going to be making. It's really easy. Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Hey, today I'm going to be making some Brussels sprouts. Now I think this is a little vegetable that gets a bad rap. Okay, I think when it's prepared right, in fact I don't think, I know, when this is prepared right, it's sweet, it's delicious, it's full-bodied. It's a really good tasting vegetable. The problem is there seems to be a lot of folks that don't seem to know how to prepare it right, or at least the ones that have prepared it for me. All right, and so I've had a lot of disappointments when biting into Brussels sprouts, and I've seen a lot of approaches. All right, I've seen one approach where you cut them open and season them up and put them in the oven and pull them out all roasted and beautiful looking. They're kind of dry and well, a bit, how would I say, still a bit tough. They're not tender the way they should be. So that's not my favorite method. And I've also seen them pan seared. Just take them, put them in a pan, sear them up. They're just rock hard and brown on the outside. No. So today what I'm going to show you is a wonderful way of cooking these things up so they're going to be soft, tender, so soft that you'll be able to cut it in half with a fork. All right? And on the outside it'll be browned, beautifully seared, so it's got wonderful flavors of caramelization in addition to the sweet notes that it gets when it's cooked properly. All right, so this is a two-step cooking process, not hard to do, and it creates a Brussels that's really, really delicious. Now, before I get off into all of that, I would mention to you, please look in my description box. My links are there. Links to my social media. So you got the Facebook is there, the Twitter is there, Instagram is there. My website's there. Hey, that's a big one. That's S.A.Trotter.com. That's where you get the recipes and other merchandise for Texas Cooking Today. I've got caps and aprons, and, you know, the usual stuff. So please check that out. But for now, let's get started on these Brussels. This isn't a hard one to do. Let me show you, take you through the steps of preparing them, cooking them the right way, and enjoying a vegetable that honestly just gets a bad rap. It's very good. Come on over. When you get Brussels, sometimes they'll be perfect and green and fresh and beautiful, and there won't be a spot on them. Other times they're going to be kind of like what you see here. These need a little help, and that's kind of the reason I chose them. I wanted to show you that even if you get some pretty rough looking Brussels, you can make something with them. Now the first thing we want to do on our Brussels is cut off that little scab right down here. This little scab is going to do you good, but you don't want to cut too deep. You don't want to cut way up here and go through it, because when you do, you're going to be slicing off all those outer leaves. We're going to remove some of the outer leaves because some of them just really look bad, but I don't want to remove all of them. And I don't have to take off all of that scab, just a small portion where it's looking kind of dry and woody. That's all I need to do, is just take that off right there. Okay, now these outer leaves, some of them, like I said, were looking a little bit hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull off just the very outer ones. You don't have to, and it just depends on what your Brussels look like, but this one is pretty rough looking, and I think it needs a little bit of help. Oh, there it is. Okay, so now we're down to good, clean, green flesh, and you can see we still got a bit of that stem sticking out. That's a beautiful Brussels, and it's going to cook up really nice. So what I'm going to do is I want to go through these, and this doesn't take but just a couple of minutes to really do it right. I'm going to go through these and break down every single last one of them on the ones that need it. Any of them that don't need it, we'll just get trimmed on the stem and put in the pan. All right. So now sometimes you can get a spot on there, and if you just want to trim that thing out, you can do it just like that also. And that Brussels right there will cook up just fine. So don't be afraid of making little changes like that on your Brussels sprouts as needed. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, right? Okay, so this one I went a little deep. Some of those leaves are going to come off because of it. They come off from the bottom like that. All right. I have my Brussels right here in this pan. These are looking really good, just perfect. You notice they look just like little tiny cabbages, and of course they're in the same family. There was a little bit of waste, but not a lot, and these could actually be used for some vegetable broth if you wanted to save it for that. But there's some spots on these that really just didn't look right, and I didn't want to use them on my Brussels. I'm very picky about how my vegetables look when they come out of the pan or when they're going in the pan. So we have this. I'm going to add some water down in here. All right, yeah. This doesn't take a whole lot of water. I put 1 cup in there, and I'm going to put a lid on this. We're going to bring it to a boil. I'm going to reduce the temperature to simmer, and I'm going to let it cook for 12 to 15 minutes. The test is when you take a fork and push it against one. Is it going to be hard, or is the fork going to slide right into it? If the fork slides in fairly easily, then they're getting to the point where we can pull them from this and prepare them for the pan sear. All right, and the pan sear is what adds a lot of flavor. So this does the cooking, this makes it sweet. Pan sear adds the caramelization and brings out that beautiful color. When we're done, these are going to be special. The Brussels sprouts are ready to get cooked now. I'm going to turn on my flame back there. There we go. And I want to bring this up to a boil. As soon as it boils, I'm going to lower the temperature. We're going to let that sit and simmer for 12 to 15 minutes. Remember, we do a fork test. Fork test tells us if it's ready or not. I have another pan here ready to sear when I'm finished cooking these, but I need to mention this. Never take your Brussels out of a liquid and then throw them into a pan that has some hot oil in the bottom of it, because you're going to end up with a really kind of a sad situation if you do that. We want to take those out and let them steam off for just a minute. It doesn't take long, but just a couple of moments before we put them into this. So I pretty much make sure the water is drained off. Now the other thing is I can simply drain all the water after cooking, open this up, and allow it to steam and dry out that way. Either way, don't throw them in soaking wet. As soon as these break boil, I'm going to start my count up timer, and I'm just going to let this count up for me to let me see just how long it's been cooking as I've been going. Now, if you're not sure, or if your timer doesn't work that way, do a countdown timer. Get my fork here. Do a countdown timer and first set it for 12 minutes. Check your Brussels after 12 minutes of cooking. If they're tender, move to your next step. Right now, we're waiting on it to boil. Something I wanted to mention while cooking these. Sometimes when you're cooking members of the cole family, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, all right, you're going to get this strange smell. Now what you're smelling there is hydrogen sulfide. When you put flame to these vegetables, when you put heat to them, they will produce a chemical compound called hydrogen sulfide. Now, to combat that, there's not a lot you can do other than just use a vent hood, get it out of the house, or you can add a teaspoon or two to the water that you're boiling with. You can add a teaspoon or two of vinegar. All right, now the vinegar, I can't tell you if there is any chemical change to hydrogen sulfide when in the presence of vinegar, because I haven't researched that out yet. However, I can say this. It's very likely, because you're introducing an acid in there, all right? So it's very likely you're getting something that's going to react with that hydrogen sulfide as it's being produced. The other thing that it will do, when you cook vinegar, it gives you a strong smell. And that aroma that's filling the air is going to be stronger than that hydrogen sulfide. So maybe it just cancels the smell. I can't be sure. But our time is now coming up on 11 minutes, 33 seconds. So I'm going to open this up and we're going to test these. Okay, they're steaming. My fork went in it, but it's still pretty stiff. You see how I had to scrape it off of there? And it didn't go in but about, a quarter of the way. So I'm going to let those cook for another 3 or 4 minutes, well, at least 3. And then it should be tender enough for us to start our next part. Now I'm looking at my timer. It says 14 50 right now. So I'm checking these again. We'll see how they're coming along. Okay. Oh, look at that. And my fork went in way easier, okay? All the way to the center on the smaller one. The larger one there, just a little bit firmer. Let me do one more. Oh, very soft. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to turn off the heat. And I'm going to get these out of that pan and get them in a place where they can dry a little bit. And so what I'm going to use is a pan rack. One of these little guys. I just need something under it to catch drips. There we are. So if you would, please remember the whole idea of drying this off, we don't want to throw something soaking wet down into a hot, oily pan. That is a recipe for disaster. There we are. I thought I had one more in there. All right, this pan I'm finished with. Get it out of our way. So we'll let these steam for just a moment as I take this other pan and just start applying some heat. I want to get it up in temperature so that it has a nice warm base on it, ready to cook in. I can feel the heat starting to, just beginning to come through right now. So we'll get that warmed up, and when it's at a good searing temperature, which means that we can get Leidenfrost effect going on in here, that's when we're going to put in our Brussels and get them cooked up. As I said, we do the water test. Now you see how that water is dancing around? Ladies and gentlemen, this pan is extremely hot. I mean, very, very hot. See the edges? All right, see what that was doing on the edge? So I've got a very, very, very high temperature pan here. I can go ahead and get my oil in here. Now don't overheat your pan. You don't necessarily want to smoke your oil. You just want to get that pan hot enough that you get good searing on your veggies. Give them a moment and let them brown. Now in addition, I want to go ahead and hit it with a little seasoning, just some salt. And if you want to add something like, say, garlic powder or onion powder, at the end of the browning in just a few minutes is the right time. This is a bit early, okay? Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I brought my temperature down just a little bit because I don't need quite that much heat, but it is doing a beautiful job of searing, and that's what we're looking for. We're just looking for that deep brown that we get in it, and we want that to coat it as much as possible. You don't have to go crazy with it. So here you see firsthand, straight through, the entire process on this. And as you can see, folks, doing Brussels sprouts is not a lot of work. But if you want a pan-seared Brussels sprout, well, you have to achieve it the right way. And that is, A, have the thing cooked so that it's not going to be tough when it hits the table. And B, so that's your par cook. You're going to do the second part of the cook this way, as you see, and the results are incredible. All right, these are beautiful and finished. I just need to get them onto my plate. Come on, get on there. There we go. Just got to get them to work with me a little there. Yeah. All right, now, I did promise that we would have Brussels that were tender enough for a fork to slide right through. Now, as I mentioned, tender enough to cut with a fork. Whoops, let me spear it a little bit so it doesn't roll on me there. See that? How that broke right open? Very tender. Okay, the sweet. I got the sweet. I got the flavor. Man, that's good. I like Brussels when they're cooked right. Well, there we have it, folks. That's Brussels sprouts, and that ain't too hard. Well, we've got them all cooked up. They are absolutely beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the way you do a pan sear on a Brussels. And trust me, it's delicious. Brussels sprouts. They're awful good. Tender. Sweet. That's the kind of Brussels sprout I can eat all day long. All right, folks, if you've ever been on the fence about Brussels, if you ever weren't sure about them, if you ever wanted a different recipe to try that, maybe try them again and see if you get something worth a darn, this is the way to do it. It's a fantastic way to prepare them. You get the best of everything. Tenderness, sweetness, the caramelized flavor, everything is just in perfect balance. So try it. Thank you for watching. Please take a look down below. That description box has my links in it, including the link to my website, S.A.Trotter.com. And that's where you're going to find my recipes and my merchandise for Texas Cooking Today. In addition, if you would take a look, you'll see my Facebook down there and also a link to Texas Cooking Today. I have, well, there's over 700 episodes. So folks, there's a lot of recipes to choose from. Get on there, find you something, and enjoy. And thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.